Hello again. We're ready to start making the jacket of our book. So we're going to start off with cereal box and some scissors. It's good to work on a non-stick surface for this project if at all possible. I've got a mat here that you can use, a tray, maybe even if you've got a plastic tablecloth or a table that you can wipe down. You'll find out later when we're doing the collage it's probably best not to work on newspaper as you normally would with messy painting jobs, because all the collage is going to end up sticking to the newspaper. So I think a non-stick surface is probably the best thing to do. So we're going to start off with a cereal box. We're going to open it up either end and flatten it out. And what we're going to do is cut off the sides, just roughly. And then open up the one side. The nice thing about using a cereal box is that you get a natural crease in it, and we're going to use that to our advantage. That's going to become the middle part of the book. So what we're going to do now is get a piece of A4 paper and fold that in half. So our book is going to be made up of lots of leaves of A4 paper all folded up. What we're going to do is put that in the middle of one of the creases. So make sure it's lined up here and make sure it's lined up here with one of the creases. I'm going to put some little bits of blue tack around the paper just to keep it in place. So what I'm going to do now is cut out the jacket of the cover of the book, but I'm going to make it slightly bigger than the A4 sheet of paper so that our book jacket is just a bit bigger. So in order to do that, I'm going to measure around the edge of the book, and I'm going to use 1.5 centimetres as my mark. So I'll show you the first line and then I'll speed up the film so that you don't have to watch me do all of it. So I'm going to go 1.5, 1.5, 1.5 centimetres. Now you see that I've done three marks. And that's because when you've got three, you're going to make sure that you've got a straight line. Gonna draw a line. If you haven't got a long ruler, it doesn't matter. Any standard, you can do this with any standard ruler. So I'm going to do that all the way around the edge. Okay, so now we've got our front cover of our book cut out, it's time to decorate it. This is the fun part. So with your magazines, the best thing to do with a collage is to think about what's going to be in the background first of all. Imagine it's like a painting. You're going to build up the background with colours, images and textures that you like. The focus for this collage, for your book, is to fill it with uplifting images. Things that make you feel happy, places you'd like to go, maybe memories, images of different things that you like. I like to focus on colour when I'm doing a collage, and my go-to colour tends to be green. It's a colour that makes me feel peaceful and calm, particularly at the moment. I'd like to get out to green spaces. It's not that easy at the moment. So I'm going to fill this book up, this front cover up, with aspirational pictures of things that I'd like. I've got a gardening magazine here. So as you can see, I'm just ripping big sections of pictures at the moment of things that I like. You can spend some time doing that. So these are going to form our background. What I like to do with my glue is to put some PVA glue into a little pot. This is just a reused moisturiser pot. And then when you finished your project at the end of the day, you can put the lid on and save it for another time without it running out, without it going dry. So now we've got all our images ready, we're going to start covering the book. I like to use PVA for this because you can just slather it all over where you're going to stick your picture down and get a nice even coverage. I'm going to put the picture on and I'm going to fold it over the edge of the book. So I'm going to leave over 1.5 inches for the other side. Now it doesn't matter here that there's a bit of writing that I don't want because I can cover that up later. So I'm going to cover that, stick that down at the front, and I'm going to turn it over. And what we're going to do is fold this over to the edges because we're going to cover the inside of the book afterwards. So fold that over, and then we want to cut into there to make a nice diagonal line to get a neat corner. We'll go with a bit of glue on each edge and fold that down that side. Now the trick here is to fold this little corner bit in, put a little bit of glue on there and make sure that that is folded in when we fold down that corner, so we end up with a nice neat edge. I'm going to carry on doing that with all the rest of the images. So I've covered all my book, and as I was working I found it much easier just to stick the pictures down and leave the edges till afterwards. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn it over, and then you can, if you've got too many edges, you can trim them down, but I wouldn't worry too much. And then I can go round and do all the corners and the edges in one go. And at this point we want to decide which is the front and which is the back. So I'm going to use the side that doesn't have this crease in as my front cover and just fold it down a bit. Okay, so as I've been going through the magazines and ripping out the collage for the collage, what happens sometimes is that you might find things jump out at you that you really like. It might be a word or a phrase. So I've put some bookmarks in, some that I like. I like this phrase here. So I'm going to now rip that out. And then there was another one that I'd bookmarked here because I like the images. So I'm looking for phrases, words. Again, they could be uplifting words, something that means something to you, may represent what you're going to use your journal for. So I quite like this word here. This one jumped out at me. It says a fresh start, which is a nice affirmation to put on our journal. So with these words and these phrases, you can use these to cover up and any parts of your book that you didn't want the logos on. You may want to get a bit neater about this and cut these out and stick these on, and that's going to finish it off. Okay, so here's the inside of the book cover. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use a piece of paper. I've got some coloured paper. but you may have just use white paper. And then I'm going to get some of my glue and cover that on the inside. Okay, so I've stuck this all on, just making sure that there's glue underneath all of it. And it goes on as smooth as possible so it's not wrinkly. And then folding it up to make that crease. Nearly done with the front cover. What I like to do with the front of my collages is just add a bit of tissue paper onto the front. I've got the same colour as the theme of my collage, and the tissue paper really helps blend areas together and can merge them in. So I'm going to spend some time adding some green tissue paper just all over the collage, and once I've done that, it will just be a case of setting it aside to dry and go and have a cup of tea break. Once my project had dried to the touch, so it didn't feel tacky or sticky anymore, I put it down onto a non-stick surface and covered it up with something else that's non-stick, so a piece of perspex or a tray, and then weighted it down with something heavy. And I left it like this for several hours to really press it down. So I left it laying out flat like this for a while, and then once it had flattened down that way, I've actually closed it up. I actually left this overnight with a paperweight on, folded, really to give it shape. So that's a really good idea to have a go at leaving it for a good couple of hours to dry completely before we sew it, which will be the next stage.